Oskar Schindler was not born a hero, nor did he plan to become one. He was born in 1908 in the town of Złotów, in what was then Austria-Hungary and is now part of the Czech Republic. Schindler grew up in a middle-class German-speaking family and lived a life shaped by ambition, charm, and a desire for success. In his early adult years, he was known more for his love of business, luxury, and social connections than for any moral convictions. Yet history would place him in circumstances that transformed him into one of the most unlikely rescuers of the Holocaust when World War II began in 1939. Germany invaded Poland. Like many opportunists of the time, Schindler saw war not only as conflict, but as a chance for profit. He joined the Nazi Party, not out of deep ideological belief, but because it opened doors. Through his connections, he acquired a factory in Krakow, Poland, which produced enamelware for the German military. To keep costs low and production high, he employed Jewish workers who were forced by Nazi law into labor. At first, Schindler's motivation was purely practical. Jewish labor was cheaper, tightly controlled by the authorities, and readily available. He enjoyed the lifestyle that his success brought: fine food, parties, and the company of influential officers. He was known as a smooth talker, someone who could persuade, flatter, and negotiate his way through difficult situations. To the outside world, he appeared to be just another businessman benefiting from the system. However, the reality surrounding him was impossible to ignore. The Jewish population of Krakow was confined to a ghetto, stripped of rights, property, and dignity. Families were separated, daily life was ruled by fear, and random acts of cruelty were common. Schindler witnessed these events from close range. He saw his workers arrive exhausted, hungry, and terrified. Over time, something began to change within him. The turning point came as the Nazi occupation grew more violent. The liquidation of the Krakow ghetto was especially significant. Schindler watched as people were forced from their homes and deported. Though he could have turned away, he did not. For the first time, he fully grasped that the system he was profiting from was built on destruction of human lives. From that moment, Schindler began to act differently. He started to see his factory not only as a business, but as a place of refuge. He insisted that his Jewish workers were essential to production and used his influence to protect them from deportation. He bribed officials, falsified records, and used every legal and illegal method he could to keep his workers safe. One of the most important figures in this effort was Oskar Stern, a Jewish accountant who worked closely with Schindler. Stern understood the Nazi system and helped Schindler navigate it. Together, they created lists of workers who were declared essential, knowing that these lists could mean the difference between life and death. Schindler trusted Stern, and Stern, despite understandable fear, trusted Schindler. As the war continued, the situation became more dangerous. In 1943, the Plaszow labor camp was established under the command of Amen Gtf, a brutal and unpredictable officer. Many of Schindler's workers were sent there. Schindler frequently visited the camp, using charm, gifts, and persuasion to keep his workers assigned to his factory rather than sent elsewhere. Each visit was risky, but he continued. By this point, Schindler was no longer motivated by profit. In fact, his actions cost him enormous amounts of money. He spent nearly everything he had on bribes, food, medicine, and protection for his workers. His factory became less efficient, but more humane. He allowed extra breaks, reduced punishments, and quietly ensured that workers received better treatment than in other places. In 1944, as the German army began to retreat and the war turned against the Nazis, orders were given to close camps in Poland and move prisoners westward. This was a critical moment. Schindler knew that if his workers were transferred, many would not survive. He made one final, desperate plan. Schindler proposed moving his factory to Brunlitz, in what is now the Czech Republic, claiming it would support the war effort. To do this, he needed official permission and, most importantly, a list of Jewish workers who would go with him. That document, later known as Schindler's List, contained the names of around 1,200 men and women. Creating the list was dangerous and complicated. Names were added, removed, and rearranged. Every name represented a person, a family, a future. Schindler once again used bribes and influence to make it happen. When the transport finally occurred, mistakes were made, and some workers were sent to the wrong destination. Schindler intervened immediately, refusing to rest until they were released and brought to his factory. At Brunlitz, Schindler did something remarkable. Though the factory was meant to produce ammunition, he deliberately ensured that nothing useful was actually made. For months, the factory operated as a cover, while Schindler continued to spend his remaining money on food and supplies for his workers. No one under his protection was executed or deported from the factory. In May 1945, the war ended. Germany surrendered, and the Nazi regime collapsed. Schindler, now penniless and considered a criminal by the Allies because of his Nazi Party membership, fled to avoid capture. Before leaving, his workers gathered to thank him. They gave him a letter signed by all of them, explaining how he had saved their lives. Some also gave him a ring, made from gold taken from their own possessions, engraved with a sentence from the Talmud, "Whoever saves one life saves the world entire." After the war, Schindler's life was difficult. He failed in several business attempts and lived in relative poverty. For many years, his actions were not widely known. It was the survivors, the Schindler Jews, who supported him, invited him to events, and spoke of his courage. In 1963, Oskar Schindler was recognized by Yad Vashem as righteous among the nations, an honor given to non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust. Schindler died in 1974 and was buried in Jerusalem, an extraordinary honor for a German Catholic businessman who had once joined the Nazi Party for convenience. His grave is still visited today by people who leave stones as a sign of respect and gratitude. Oskar Schindler's story is powerful not because he was perfect, but because he changed. He did not begin as a moral hero. He was flawed, ambitious, and self-interested. Yet when faced with overwhelming injustice, he chose to act. He used the tools he had: money, influence, persuasion, to protect others, even when it cost him everything. His life reminds us that courage does not always come from those we expect. Sometimes it comes from ordinary people who decide, in critical moments, that human life matters more than comfort, safety, or success. Schindler's legacy lives on through the thousands of descendants of those he saved, a living testament to the power of choice, responsibility, and humanity in the darkest of times.